Always the best is yet to come. So I think we're just at the brink of the next generation of cloud computing with all the AI gigafactory topics.
Thomas Saueressig is a member of the executive board of SAP, where he leads customer services and delivery, helping customers adopt and run SAP's cloud solutions end to end. He previously headed SAP product engineering and earlier served as SAP's chief information officer and global head of IT services, driving the company's cloud-first transformation.
It will always continue to change, and that's the beauty of the tech. You cannot wait till something is perfect, because the problem is with your global competitors, they will embrace it. I fundamentally believe in the future we will talk about the duet and not a duel between the machine and the human being.
Welcome, Thomas. You've been with SAP since your student days. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think enjoy the ride, because everything flows and you cannot plan actually what's happening in a career, but certainly embrace the change, embrace the future. And that's certainly something what I would certainly tell my younger one, which also means be a little bit patient sometimes and relax. That's also healthy in that moment. But the fundamental would be enjoy the ride.
And there's a lot happening right now. There's a lot to make sense of. Now you're responsible for SAP's cloud business. When you talk to friends and family that are not part of the industry, how would you describe what the cloud really is to them?
I think I always struggle to explain it in simple terms, but I think if I try to do it, I would compare it like a digital library fundamentally. So instead of buying books and you have your books in your shelf at home, and most probably you need to build a shelf and put the old books there, with the cloud you have the opportunity. With a digital library, you always have the latest up-to-date books. You have all the books available on this entire planet, and if they do an update on the book, you also have it, and you basically just rent and use the consumption of the book. And that's basically what we do with cloud, that we basically provide our customers a service that they can use these digital tools fundamentally.
And what do you think is next for the cloud? Do you think we've already reached its full potential, or is the best yet to come?
I think in technology, always the best is yet to come. And the history has proven we see always this disruption in technology. I actually believe these disruptions come closer and closer and more quickly every time. And now it's fair to say with AI, this will fundamentally also change the architecture and the design of clouds and capabilities as well. So I think we're just at the brink of the next generation of cloud computing with all the AI gigafactory topics and the like as well.
And you talked about disruption. When we look back to your career basically in enterprise software, what has been the biggest shift that you have witnessed in the field in your career?
I think that's actually an interesting one. I'm now basically 21 years with the company, but within these 21 years, we saw a significant shift from on-premise to cloud, fundamentally from a technology perspective, but also from a business model perspective. And as we speak, since the last couple of years, the next disruption with AI is happening just in front of us, which means I have the privilege to have this two very significant disruption in my times for enterprise computing. But it's fair to say SAP is now 53 years old. There were multiple new generations, and that's the reason why, coming back to the earlier point, we will see a constant evolution. But that also means something for leadership and from the mindset for yourself, that you need to be curious, you need to be willing to have a continuous learning, because the reality is it will not stop. It will always continue to change. And that's the beauty of the tech, because it always keeps to be exciting.
And I want to talk about leadership a little bit later, because there's a lot to learn from you on leadership as well. But first, maybe we can talk about the technology a little bit more. Cloud is a big topic. You explained what it fundamentally means. You also connected it to AI a little bit. What do you think are fundamentally the new business models that the technology will enable?
I think what I believe or predict a little bit what will be way more in the future will outcome-based pricing. Because the reality also, if you think about AI and AI agents specifically, there will be the point where customers will say, look, we expect also the saving potential, we expect the benefits, but I want to see it in the P&L. So simple speaking, if we talk about a procurement suite, which helps hopefully to organize your procurement, to purchase goods, hopefully more cheaply with better discounts and with better negotiation strategies, potentially using AIs to negotiate. But then for sure, you also expect that, for instance, perhaps the saving you have in procurement, that's the outcome. And you take a percentage of that outcome, which means you have a clear link to the value you generate. And that will be something which will disrupt all tech companies, but also will be a great opportunity for our customers to directly link the value and the outcome of the activity and potentially AI in this regards but then really with the effect in your P&L. And that's something where I believe we will see more along the way, but certainly something where multiple parties need to really first learn and embrace that in a more significant manner.
And how far away are we from such an outcome-based pricing?
I think we as a company, for instance, we tried out. We have some outcome-based pricing models in place. We also see, for instance, in different industries, like in the service industry, also service companies providing outcome-based pricing as well. So I think we are just at the starting point, but to your point, this will come, I'm pretty sure.
Mhm. And for the business leaders that are listening, what would you say is really the big strategic advantage of being early to the cloud, or the flip side of that, what happens if you're late to cloud adapt?
I mean, if you talk in the year 2025, everybody who now considers cloud is late by definition, because that's already quite a long time ago. But if you compare it to AI now, where AI is just on the starting point the last couple of years with the capabilities, my clear recommendation is you need to embrace the future early. That's absolutely essential. You cannot wait till something is perfect, because the problem is on a global scale with your global competitors, they will embrace it, they will do it, and you will certainly be always only a follower in that sense. And that will be, with such large transformations, a big topic if you're not ahead of the curve. What is also important for new technologies, you need to ensure culturally that people make themselves familiar, especially with AI, which means you should start very early, that people try out some of the Gen AI tooling, try out some agents. How does that feel? What does that make with my role? How will my job potentially evolve based on leveraging AI in that sense? And that's something where I always encourage everybody these days, please try it out, embrace it, because one thing is clear, it's always a bad business strategy to try to avoid the obvious or to try to avoid the future, because it will happen. And that's clear for AI. And that's the reason, in my perspective, there's only one topic: embrace it early, make yourself familiar, and not only embrace it, think, how can that change my business fundamentally to really take the leapfrog to the next level?
Mhm. So there are two different levels to this. One is adoption, and the other one, the strategic kind of discussion around this. What advice would you have for business leaders out there? How can you um, make people in the organization adopt the technology more widely?
I think in the end of the day, as always in life, you have a carrot or stick model. On the one hand side, you want to incentivize people to try it out, to play around, to use it. You need to give them time to learn. So what, for instance, we did in a couple of years back, when after the ChatGPT moment, we said everybody should take a full day, just everybody out, and try it out. Do some prompts, use some LLMs, do some notebook LLM stuff, whatever, to get a feeling about it. But you need to invest into people, and you need to give them the opportunity to do it. And hopefully they get excited. Hopefully they have an intrinsic motivation to do more. And hopefully with that, you make this little spark in their imaginations to push it forward. On the other hand side, the stick would be, for sure, in a usual business sense, you will talk about the budgets next year. And there will be an expectation about productivity gains and efficiency gains based on AI, which means there will be a couple of percentage points savings where you say, this is the savings you need to bring using AI. And then the business leader, for sure, they need to get creative. Okay, how do I now achieve it? And then they're fundamentally forced to think about leveraging AI. Otherwise, they would not hit the budget target. So basically, a carrot and stick always is a combination. You need to basically, for yourself in your company culture, need to see where are you, and how much stick, how much carrot is required. Most probably that will depend on the industry itself. But in the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, you cannot avoid it anyway. And that's the reason why it's better to embrace such moments instead of trying to avoid it, as mentioned.
And when we link AI again back to the cloud a little bit, what is the role that the cloud plays in shaping the global AI race that is currently going on?
I think fundamentally for AI, what we clearly see, we need an unbelievable amount of compute and GPU, TPU capabilities to really have, on the one hand side, the training basically capacities, but also for inference, for all the workloads which are happening by using AI. That means, by definition, the cloud infrastructure need to grow and need to expand to the AI workloads. So we see a growing need for cloud, because in the end of the day, AI only will work with cloud scale and embracing that. And that's the reason why cloud will be a foundation for all of the AI what we will see in the future.
And when you look at who's actually making money from AI so far, it seems that all the value goes to the infrastructure provider, to the cloud providers, and to the chip providers. Do you think that
And
this?
to software providers.
Yeah, well, I found it interesting. It seems at least one statistic that I've seen was that companies like OpenAI, they don't make as much money from the tech as, for example, Nvidia.
Absolutely.
So do you think that this kind of shift or do you think that this kind of tendency of hardware versus software in the AI race is going to continue like this, or what's your perspective on this?
I mean, actually, what we currently see, and that's a prediction I did actually 3 years ago, is fundamentally, if you think about a stack on 3 layers. On the one hand side, you have application, the application context. The second would be the LLMs in that sense, and the third would be infrastructure. If you, in simple terms, categorize it in those 3 levels, it's absolutely obvious that the infrastructure side, they must grow now the capacity, which means infrastructure providers like Nvidia, like AMD, like others, they will benefit for sure from the significant need for more computing power, which means absolutely they will have a lot of value capture in the AI game. What you currently also see is that the large language models itself get commoditized, because in the end of the day, they are trained with the same public available data, which by definition says there's no differentiation because you train it on the same data, which means you see a commoditization. You also see a commoditization because for sure the tech is advancing. We all know the DeepSeek moment. So it will be cheaper to train and you don't have differentiation. So the LLM itself gets commoditized. And to your point with that, there you will not see the value capture that much in the future in that sense. But, and that's what you also see with an OpenAI or with an SAP, the application on top, that is where the differentiating value lies fundamentally in the higher value services, which means OpenAI is working on applications using the LLMs, and ChatGPT is just one application using the LLM. And we, for sure, as a company, embed this technology, these LLMs, but in the business context. So we now take differentiated business data, proprietary business data, to derive higher value outcomes for our customers. And that's the reason why I fundamentally believe you see on the application side as well on the infrastructure side a lot of value creation and capture. And for sure, the LLMs are absolutely necessary as a technology means, but it will get commoditized over time. And with that, for sure, I believe the value will be up and down the ladder if you compare it from the LLM, where the value will be generated.
Mhm. And what's your outlook on cloud capacity? It seems that at the moment, many people are talking about potential limits to infrastructure growth because of the cost, because of energy, all of these things. Do you think that cloud or infrastructure might become a bottleneck ultimately to AI development?
I mean, that's an interesting question. I would answer it in twofold ways, fundamentally. On the one hand side, it's clear we need to expand capacities for more AI workloads, usage, and training. Absolutely. Do I see a constraint? Not really. I think there's something also where I believe some of the involved players, for sure, they need to also talk a lot about scarcity of capacity because they want to see their market capitalization in the ranges which they are. And if there would be any form of negative statements around the potential exponential growth for AI capacities, then multiple companies would get a devaluation, which means there is an intrinsic industry motivation to keep the story high that we will run out of capacity and energy and the world will go doomsday because we don't have sufficient energy for all this amazing AI. And I see that perhaps a little bit more differentiated in and say we will see an absolutely growth, and that will be a lot of business and a lot of growth for a lot of companies. Do I see that this will constrain our AI capacities? I think the answer is, as I discussed a little bit, in the middle. So I'm not too much worried about that. And what I always recommend, to understand the nature of the progress of technology, which means we see it already today that the new chips have way more computing power with way less energy demands. And that will continue. So over time, we see a phenomenon of new technology which ensures that we don't run out of energy in this regard. Because again, that's exactly the progress and the research about technology which will happen. And that's the reason why I'm fairly convinced. If you now look to a smartphone, think about how much storage you have, how much computing power basically in your palm. Think about how many server farms you would have needed earlier in the days to have the same comparable computing. And that is something which will happen along the way. And that's the reason why I'm not pessimistic there.
Okay. And cloud seems to become as essential as electricity or water, which also brings a lot of responsibility. How do companies deal with that level of responsibility?
I think that's actually a great question, because the reality is cloud is already by definition critical infrastructure. And we also need to consider it as critical infrastructure. And that means we need to protect it and to safeguard it and secure it like critical infrastructure, because basically we as humans depend so much already on cloud. So certainly that means for all cloud providers like SAP, we need to understand it's our obligation that resiliency, stability, security, this is not nice to have. This is the bare foundation which needs to run at unbelievable scale. And that's what we need to do. But this understanding about the responsibility is super important for all of us in the tech industry. And we need to be clear that this is a dedicated critical infrastructure responsibility we have in our hands.
Earlier, you already talked about leadership in AI a little bit. One topic that I'm particularly interested in is AI-based decision-making and how AI might shape the future of leadership and how we decide in organizations. What's your take on this? How much of decisions will be made entirely by AI in collaboration with AI or just by humans?
I think already the last decades, there was a clear, we always call it insight to action fundamentally, that you use your data, you make basically reasoning out of the data to take decisions with analytics in that sense, using data. So that's, first of all, not a new topic, but for sure with AI, you take that on steroids, for sure, without a doubt. And with the promise of AI agents, you also expect that AI is preparing the decision in a way different manner, using way different data pools and stuff together to basically come to that decision. I fundamentally believe in the future we will talk about a duet and not a duel between the machine and the human being. So I always believe AI will complement the human and hopefully with that significantly raise the productivity of every human being. But it will be complementary in that sense. But for sure, decisions hopefully will be easier and quicker leveraging AI. That's what we already see with our customers and what we can do with the power of AI in our hands. And for sure, the philosophical question about the human in the loop, which we always talk about in the AI ethics fundamentally, the question is for sure, if the AI outcome is proven for 99.9% right, there will be the question, when can the AI fundamentally take the real call for a decision? For sure, we need to be then very clear what's the scenario, because for sure we don't want that the AI is taking a decision on a hiring process for human beings. That's certainly something where also according to the EU AI Act, for sure, these kind of protected critical things touching also human beings, that should be humans which take the final call. But in the end of the day, if I buy automatically way more supply and whatever, most probably that's something which absolutely AI will take over in that sense, where already today the preparation and automation for such things is anyway done. And that's the reason why I think we need to differentiate the concerns there.
Another thing many people are talking about right now in the context of leadership is how do you actually deal with AI agents? And is this a new dimension to leadership? Will leaders essentially lead humans and AI agents at the same time?
That's a good question. The question is also, if you think about your leadership team, if you want to have a dedicated whatever account agents as part of your leadership team, and how do you treat it, and how do you give tasks to this additional workforce fundamentally? And yes, I do believe actually in some moment in the future, we need to think about how we really scale and use that. But I think there's still a way to go, that you really from a role perspective see that happening. But for sure, we need to consider that. We need to see what does that mean in that sense for leadership in the future. But yeah, that's certainly something where I think we will see a lot of exciting also tests how people will experience it. I just talked actually 2 weeks ago with an automotive OEM, a board member, and he's actually now practicing with his team to say, we now have one additional member, an agent there, and he drives with that actually the creation of the AI scenarios. Because he asks the leaders, what should that role, this additional agent, do for us in the team? And they basically creatively say, oh, this new person should do this, and that. which means you derive use cases, you derive the capabilities this agent in the future should have. It's not that the agent is there already, it's not there yet, but it's also thinking differently. What should this agent be capable of doing that it's worth sitting at the table, which is helping you to derive high-value AI scenarios, which is actually an interesting idea to come to AI scenarios.
You also talked about the strategic element of AI. And one question that many leaders are thinking about right now is how to really capture value and create value from the technology rather than having costly pilots that tend to fail very often. What would be your recommendation? How should you think about the technology from a strategic perspective?
I think that's exactly the key point, that you don't consider it as a technology. That's always the mistake, because it's not technology for the technology's sake. You always need to lead with the business outcomes. What do you want to achieve? It's a business problem which you want to solve. And then for sure you use the right technology hopefully to solve it. But you need to start with the customer, with the business problem. That's also, by the way, the reason why SAP decided that our strategy is embedded AI. So naturally, in every business process of our application, we embed AI. It's a new standard normal. It's nothing bolt on, it's nothing separate, it's not a technology playground POC thing, but it's just naturally embedded in modern enterprise software. It's part of the process, it's part of how people work. And this, I think, is an important differentiator. And that's also the reason why I believe, actually, when we see about, perhaps you refer to the MIT study that 95% of AI projects fail. And again, for sure, we can debate the statistical relevance and whatever, but the clear message is clear. The majority fails. And I think that's true because it's considered a POC. It's considered I use technology and try technology out. That's the wrong approach. And that's the reason why we, for sure, as the leader for business applications, we come with this business outcome first and use technology in that sense to embrace it. And I think that's the difference. And with that, we also simplify for our customers to adopt AI in that regards.
And what single question would you think every CEO should ask their CTO, CIOs about cloud and AI right now?
To be honest, very foundational IT question. As a former CIO, I think I can credibly talk about that. How is the data strategy? Because AI is only as good as the data you have. And the reality is, a lot of business leaders, unfortunately, neglected the understanding that actually the traditional IT homework to get the right data quality, data governance in place was neglected. So I fundamentally, even with all the conversations I have, would even argue 90% of all AI projects have a huge data component included, which in reality is just doing homework, which everybody should have done years ago. But back then, data was such a boring topic that nobody wanted to spend money on data. And now, because we label it AI, out of a sudden, you get fundamentally the basic, let's say, IT operational funding, which you always wanted, now under the cover of AI. This is an unfortunate truth. And that's the reason data literacy, the understanding about this, is super critical in boards around the world. And that's the reason it's potentially a boring question, but I would start with the data topic, because that will signal you if the outcome of your AI activities will be worth it.
I also want to talk about your own journey a little bit and your learnings from this, because it's very interesting. So looking back at your journey at SAP up to this point, what lessons have you learned that are guiding how you manage today or how you lead today?
I think what always helps me in decision-making processes is really to start from the customer. What the customer actually needs? And not what he says what he wants, but what he really needs. And that's a fair differentiation actually as well. But customer needs is a big topic which is guiding basically my decisions. And if I see that I help to solve a customer problem and his needs, most probably it's giving me the right direction in that one. And I always, in my career, basically, I try to challenge not only myself, but always also the status quo. Because the reality is, especially in large corporations, and if they are, let's say, a couple of decades old, the reality is there are processes in place, there are decisions in place from the past. And unfortunately, I see some people don't challenge it. The reality is you must challenge the status quo. You need to take it to the next level. And you will sometimes hear, oh, we tried that in the past and it didn't work. Hey, it's a new time, it's a new leadership. Perhaps if you do it in the right way, it now works. It doesn't hold you back that something in the past failed. Perhaps the question is, what did we learn, why it failed, and perhaps we can avoid the mistake to do it again and do it better this time. So challenge yourself, challenge the status quo, come from a customer first. And this is something which is absolutely critical. And in general in leadership, which is always important, empathy. And that again comes with customer empathy to your customers, your partners, and your employees, because fundamentally it's a people business. And your success depends actually 100% on how the teams, the organizations thrive. You don't succeed for yourself, and people need to acknowledge, especially in the career, it's even more important to enable and empower the people to grow and to lead, and with that you succeed. And that's something which always is important for me to see. Is the environment in the right way that actually the team can be successful?
And what advice would you give, particularly the next generation of tech leaders starting in their career right now?
I think first and foremost, follow your passion. I got a lot of questions about, should I even learn to develop because code generation is so great, so most probably you don't need developers in the future or something like that. You hear such statements in some overhyped, buzzy marketing blogs or whatever. And some people believe it. I fundamentally believe, don't worry about all of that, because nobody has predicted the future, what's happening now, 20 years ago, when everybody said you need to be a software developer, and now everybody says you don't need to be a software developer. Don't worry, we need software developers also in 20 and 40 and 80 years actually, because software development is not just coding. It's actually a very creative process, which is compromising a lot of activities. But for sure, the work will change, but will not be replaced, which means independent of what you want to do, follow your passion, because you only can be successful in really high performing if you have a passion about the topic. Everybody, which I also saw in my own experience, where I went to school together, they wanted to become this in that profession because they believe they can earn a lot of money and that they can do something. Mm-hmm. But they never reached the top of the hill, because you only can be super successful and persevere huge pressure and workloads if you love what you do. So it sounds a little bit sometimes philosophical, but I truly believe if you don't love what you do, if you don't have passion, you will not outperform the rest of the millions of people around the world who want to do exactly the same what you do. And if you want to compete against the millions of the world, again, you only can have a chance if you have such an exciting motivation that you also accept personal sacrifices. Let's be honest, if you step up the career ladder, it will only come with personal sacrifices. It will not go with a 9-to-5 job. It will not go with work-life balance and whatever. The reality is, we need to be honest about it. It will require personal sacrifices. But you can only take these personal sacrifices in a good spirit and with ambition if you love what you do. And you know that the trade-off is worth it because you're absolutely committed to this trade-off. Otherwise, again, if you then hate that you do the weekend work, again, you will not be that successful in that sense. That's the reason I think it's super important to follow your passion.
Mm. And when you think about the next decade, what excites you most personally in your role in shaping the future of enterprise technology?
I think we're at this pivotal moment to really see how can we now help all of our customers, quite frankly, to really embrace AI, to really rethink how businesses run fundamentally and people work. And this is an exciting proposition which we have in front of us, and where everybody in this industry, I think, is so excited to make that a reality. So the next decade will be predominantly the adoption of AI and what that means for business.
And we like to end our show on a positive note. The conversation was very positive so far, but still we ask all our guests the same question, which is, what makes you optimistic about the future?
In general, I'm a very optimistic person, but the reality is, I think we are at a point in time where with extremely powerful technology, but I also truly believe in humanity. And if you bring both together, this will have an opportunity which is phenomenal. So combination of humanity and technology at hand, and it's on us to shape the future. We are the masters of our own destiny.
Thomas, thank you very much for joining us today on What's Next and for showing us the potential of AI and cloud, not only for shaping the future of business, but as you said, the future of society. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.